Because Bitcoin is now accessible through a brokerage firm, more people will start investing in it. This would actually reduce the market volatility that is usually associated with Bitcoin. Before we dive in, let's break down some of these terms. In January, the SEC Security and Exchange Commission approved the spot Bitcoin ETF. This ETF allows investors to invest directly in Bitcoin, and I have to say this is a big deal. Massive investment companies like BlackRock, Fidelity, ARK Investment, Invesco, WisdomTree, Bitwise Asset Management, Volcry, Vanek, Franklin already have these funds in place, and I mean the Bitcoin ETF. Even Forbes calls it a new era for Bitcoin investing. As at the time of this recording, BlackRock's total assets under management is around 10 trillion US dollars, and they just recorded inflow of about 10 billion for Bitcoin ETF. But what does this really mean? Before we dive in, let's break down some of these terms. First, ETF stands for Exchange Trading Funds. It's like pre-made investment basket of assets that trades in the stock markets. These assets can be stocks, gold, bonds, oil, or even index like the S&P 500. And because they are listed and can be traded on the stock market, you can buy and sell them throughout the day. A Bitcoin ETF works in the same way. In the past, if you want to buy Bitcoin, you have to go through platforms like Coinbase and Binance. You set up your account, you buy the Bitcoin under your name, and then you keep the Bitcoin either in the platform or you take the Bitcoin offline to an offline wallet, which is usually favorable in case you're scared of a cyber attack. But with Bitcoin ETF, you don't have to deal with all that because you're actually handing your money over to the brokerage firm, like BlackRock and co. And they in turn would be the ones that would buy the Bitcoin on your behalf. From what I understand, it looks like a lot of these brokerage firms don't actually store the Bitcoin, but they actually store them with the exchange. So while a normal ETF is a basket of assets, a Bitcoin ETF is only going to be holding Bitcoin or its derivatives, so you don't have the diversification that would normally apply when you're investing in a broad ETF or index funds. One of the biggest advantage to this news is the fact that because Bitcoin is now accessible through a brokerage firm, more people will start investing in it. And this is not just limited to retail investors like you and me, but also institutional investors like pension funds. These guys can also start investing in Bitcoin ETF. The truth is, these firms give it a kind of legitimacy, and there are lots of people that are interested in buying Bitcoin but would not do it through a crypto exchange like Binance and Coinbase. But if they have to go through their normal investing app and platform that they trust, where their retirement sits, it's going to be a lot easier for them to actually make that change to start buying Bitcoin. Another advantage is the fact that because you can now invest through a brokerage firm, that means that you're getting some sort of insurance that is going to be provided by the brokerage firm, if they actually provide this. And I say that with a big if, because going through BlackRock's documents, we see that Bitcoin ETF is actually treated as an unsecured investment, and more of that later. And lastly, because these institutions will invest a percentage of their total portfolio into Bitcoin, this would actually reduce the market volatility that is usually associated with Bitcoin. What do I mean? Imagine BlackRock invests just 1 to 5% of its total assets in Bitcoin. That's around 100 to 500 billion. Since they won't be trading every day, this would actually stabilize the coin. If you're getting value, please do like and subscribe. It tells YouTube that you're actually getting value and helps the channel to reach more people. What of some disadvantages? Bitcoin as we know it today is very volatile, and even though I'm guessing institutional investing might stabilize the price, you might still see massive and frequent price fluctuations, which would be reflected in the price of Bitcoin ETF, because the ETF actually tracks the price of Bitcoin. Another disadvantage is the fact that its prices, I mean Bitcoin prices, are not based on anything tangible like the way you would see it for a company, but instead it's based on speculations and manipulation. And thirdly, the idea of crypto is to own something that no government can normally touch. But buying this ETF, it's technically not your cryptocurrency. You are only buying the shares of the ETF, and the shares of the ETF is what actually own the Bitcoin. So even though you indirectly own the Bitcoin, at the end of the day, you don't have the keys, you can't move it to an offline wallet, and technically, it's not your crypto. The last disadvantage is that because the crypto itself will be with a custodian like Coinbase, if that custodian collapses like we saw with SBF, your assets could be treated as an unsecured asset. Look at this paragraph from BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF prospectus. I won't bore you to read the whole thing, but I will just highlight key sentences. Here, it is a risk that customers' assets, including the trust assets, may be considered the property of the bankruptcy estate. Customer, including the trust, may be at risk of being treated as general unsecured creditors. What does this mean? In simple terms, if the companies handling your Bitcoin goes under, the legal safety net for getting your Bitcoin back is uncertain. You might end up losing your Bitcoin or getting back much less than you had in the first place. Now, you might be wondering why Bitcoin ETFs are causing such excitement, and it's very simple. This excitement is driving the price of Bitcoin up. And I bet that these are still early days. Another question I would like to answer is, can you buy a Bitcoin ETF in the UK? For now, Bitcoin ETFs are prohibited for sale in the UK by the FCA. But the UK government plans to introduce regulations for stable coins and crypto in the next 6 months. Will this translate to an ETF? We'll just have to watch and see. So what's my take? As at today, based on my personal circumstance, Bitcoin ETF is not something that I would invest in. I have an overall strategy when it comes to buying crypto, and based on my circumstance and risk profile, that's fine by me. Let's read what Vanguard has to say about Bitcoin ETF. When deciding what investment product to offer, we consider a range of factors, including whether we believe they have enduring investment merits and meet our clients' needs. While discussing about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, in general, it has increased recently. We do not currently believe that there is an appropriate role for them to play in long-term portfolios. That's key. He also went on to say that investors who come directly to Vanguard do so because they know we put their interests first. That is reflected in the products and services that we do and what we have on the shelf. Vanguard's position says a lot, and I'm going to end it there. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share. Do not keep it to yourself.